everybody.
Hi, everyone.
So we are very excited because Brighteon University is going to be streaming the entire Healing for the Ages conference for free on November 2nd. So please mark your calendars.
Definitely mark your calendars.
When we found out about this conference, when it was originally airing live, we went to the site, we purchased the conference, and we blocked out the days that it was being held from our very busy schedules because we knew that the information that they were going to be talking about in the conference was that important. And so this information is offering some real hope to people.
Yeah. So what you're going to find in the conference when you go to it is a presentation done by professionals in their industries, all coming together, healers, doctors, practitioners, showing you what their findings are and explaining what the problem is and how we can all heal from the things that have happened over the last couple of years. They have equipment and they have evidence that they've shown under the microscope in this presentation on what they found and how to fix these things. We're going to briefly go through some of the things, some of the information that we found that they were discussing in the conference so that it can get you ready as a primer for when you decide to see or go through the course on November 2nd.
So I'm going to show you some of my favorite clips from different presentations from the conference as a bit of a teaser, but what we're going to see and why this conference was so important. First of all, as a disclaimer, we do not personally know any of the people that were at the conference. We do not have any kind of business relationships with them.
No.
What we're doing here is we're just trying to support them. We're trying to say, everybody please go look at their research, at their work, and at their findings because it is incredibly promising and very, very hopeful for the rest of humanity that has been murdered by the onslaught of nanotechnology. Because in this conference, they're using the equipment at their disposal, it's expensive equipment, in order to do different studies and show the evidence and proof, specifically of chelating nanotechnology and the building blocks of nanotechnology out of the body.
So you can heal.
So you can heal, and turning off that nanotechnology. They show the evidence and the proof in this conference. In addition to that, because they're healers, they're all coming from different backgrounds, working in their field with their own set of clients and people. Many of their patients, I'm not sure if they were patients, but just people that were sick that came to them for help, they were at the conference. Mm-hmm. They were getting up and giving their testimonies. And we heard testimony after testimony from these people who said, I should be dead right now.
Yes.
But I'm not, because I was healed from this. I cured from that, whatever it was. So that's why this information is so important. If you or a loved one has been damaged by the nanotechnology, by the COVID injections, by this onslaught of what they've been doing to all of us, or if you're concerned about it, please watch this conference, book time, go to Brighteon University. It's going to be free. No money, okay? It's going to be free. So please, thank you to Brighteon University for doing this.
Thank you for doing this.
It's an absolute pleasure to have this information being shared. We'll leave all the links that you need below to go sign up. It's November 2nd.
The real serious side effects they know from EMFs from all the devices that we are exposed to, 5G radiation included. And
so let me mention where people can find that. There's going to be two places. Number one, of course, is your website, healingfortheages.com. And if they go to replays here up top, replays, they can find that event right here. Also, we're going to be, thank you for your permission to allow us to stream these events at Brighteon University, which is brightu.com. I understand that event's going to be streaming November 2nd, I believe. Yeah, November 2nd. for free at brightu.com. People can register there, or they can register with you or download it. I think purchase it from you as well. So there's a lot of options. We're just always thrilled to be able to offer your material.
But no, on a serious note, like I work with people from all around the world who are recovering from these damn shots, and the injuries. And so we see a tremendous genetic integration. We see tremendous genetic integration with the microbiome. We see colony collapse. We know that when you collapse certain colonies of commensal flora, good flora in the body, it sets people up for cancer. And then we talked this past week at the conference at the fall conference this year. We talked extensively about quantum dots, and we talked about how these quantum dots are embedding in the cell structure. So it's like, yeah, you don't need to have a pager or a cell phone that has a ticking time bomb on you. It's the time bomb is now in your cells.
That's right.
And what we're showing everybody is how do you defuse the time bomb? And that's what's going to be on this wonderful event, the Virtual Solution Summit replay on November 2nd. How do you diffuse the time bomb? And then we talk about how do we safely get the time bomb out of the cells. That's what we do.
Well, that's really critical. And a follow-up question for you, Dr. Ely, is I'm sure you have all been contacted by numerous people who took some of the jabs, 1, 2, 3, or whatever, and then they realized that was a horrible mistake. And then there's a moment of panic typically, and they're like, how do I get rid of this thing? So what you're saying is that Solutions Conference is going to help answer that question in a practical manner?
Absolutely. And it's got to be practical. And the thing that we've learned is it's got to be in sequential steps. Like this is where Dr. Ardis's work on nicotine is so important. This is where Dr. Ardis and Dr. Group's work on the microsomal EDTA formula is so instrumental. And what we've been doing now is working on the next step in that process of getting the time bombs out. So we've been doing a lot of work collectively on chelation and showing that we can now orally chelate someone just as good, if not even a little bit better than the IV chelation.
Really?
And when we're able to do that, yeah, buddy. So when we're able to do that, now we have a solution that people can learn and people can do without the exorbitant cost and the exorbitant, inconvenience of having to go in and get intravenous methods to get these things out. We know how to do it orally now, and it's really exciting.
We are living in a time when it's becoming increasingly and readily apparent that the health authorities and the government so-called authorities, they are absolutely determined to block the public's access to anything that works to protect them. I mean, they are at war with humanity. It's abundantly clear. What are your thoughts?
Yes, and where they're not, they are tricking people, and into paying for their own demise. We see this all over the place. It's like once you see through the illusion, and you start to say, okay, I'm no longer going to pay for my own demise. It's like, well, where are the solutions that we need? And then you see that EDTA has been under attack. Then you see NAC has been under attack. And you see these things that are completely safe and effective, and I use that very intentionally, that we're having a hard time getting them and that they want to take them out. And it's like, why do you want to take that out? Why is it that nicotine around the world is being banned? Were they talking about a dollar for dollar tax on nicotine in certain places? Why can't you not get nicotine easily in UK, and why is it going off the shelves in Canada? Because it is the remedy. It's the thing that breaks through their nanotechnology and their agenda. And if we don't start preserving these things that do that, we're going to be in a very bad situation in the very, very near future. So that's what I love about the work Dr. Ardis is doing. That's why it's such an honor to be working alongside him and Dr. Group and Dr. Schmidt, because we've said, look, I don't care about what is, politically or socially, inconvenient. We care about being objective. Let's do the research. Let's do the work. Let's do the testing. Let's go buy the equipment that we need to buy to do this work on our own. And let's find the solutions that God has all around us and share that with the people. I mean, what else are you going to do with your life in a time like this but help be the good? Help what Chuck D would say, help the good get even. That's what we're going to do here.
I mean, it's so clear, Dr. Ely, that God put you here to heal people, that he even named you H. Ely. I'm sure everybody points this out, which spells Healy. You're healing people. You're helping people heal themselves with the power of the divine through us. And this is, I want to ask I want to go to Dr. Artis on this, but back to you after that, Dr. Ely. God put these molecules on this planet that are fully capable of, I'm going to say it, preventing, treating, and curing chronic degenerative diseases and other acute conditions. God's medicine is all around us, and it seems like mankind's synthetic medicine is focused entirely on making humanity not recognize the natural medicine that has been here this entire time.
Same receptors that are targeted by venom to shut off their function are on those T cell, B cells.
Wow.
Nicotine kicks them off and turns them on, which was incredible to me. I had never even seen that. It was amazing.
Now, I also want to be clear, a disclaimer, none of us are recommending that people take up smoking cigarettes. That's not what we're talking about.
No, I'm going to clear that up right now. Can you give me a second?
Please, go ahead.
Real quick to do this. Anybody out there going, well, I don't want to use tobacco products. Great, don't use them. Go look up Medical Health News today and look up the article, How Dietary Nicotine Cures and Prevents Parkinson's. And then the next question is, what's dietary nicotine? Do people just eat tobacco? Not really. So what are the dietary sources of nicotine that your body uses every week to boost your immune system? Just so you know, like I just mentioned. Well, eggplant is the second highest containing nicotine plant on Earth. Tomatoes are number 3 after tobacco, eggplant, tomato. Did you know white potatoes, which means every French fry, Frito-Lay potato chip, has nicotine loaded in it? What about bell peppers? Did you know that? Cauliflower, celery, all of these have high amounts of nicotine. And what about zucchini? All the nightshade vegetables are loaded with nicotine. And you know what I find amazing? They have proven in their studies over this that dietary sources of those plants that contain nicotine can prevent, reverse, Parkinson's, MS, ulcerative colitis, Alzheimer's, arthritis, autism traits. I'm not joking. It reverses myocarditis in 3 days. I'm not kidding. The scarring of the heart is reversed. Brain tumors are cured in 72 hours or less, called glioblastomas with just nicotine. You get nicotine from the veggies you're eating. And I have to ask Mike Adams, Health Ranger, this question. If all those vegetables contain nicotine, Mike Adams, Health Ranger, why do you think French fries at McDonald's and waffle fries at Chick-fil-A don't come with a warning label on them that this product contains nicotine, an addictive substance? And why ketchup and every tomato doesn't have, this has high amounts of nicotine in it that's addictive?
I will answer that question. And the answer is because nicotine is not addictive. That's the answer.
Right.
But also, let me add one more thing. Of course, these foods that you're describing, they contain nicotine, but at very low concentrations compared to something like a deliberate nicotine patch, which is transdermal absorption. And by the way, it's always funny to me that people say, like, I'm talking about the toxicity of cosmetics, all the toxic ingredients. They're like, well, it doesn't get absorbed through your skin. I'm like, ever heard of a nicotine patch? Ever heard of like B12 patches? Ever heard of iodine patches? Of course it goes through your skin.
And here are some of the clips from the conference that I found, they were just our favorite clips.
Yes.
Out of all of them. So we've been doing presentations and showing people this stuff, and we figured we would give you some of these clips to encourage you to go watch the conference for yourself. The Healing for the Ages conference was held over 2 days, and it was a very, very full schedule with lots of different keynote speakers. The 4 main doctors that put on this conference were Dr. Artis, Dr. Group, Dr. Ely, and Dr. Schmidt. But as you can see from the schedule here, there were many other guest speakers like Dr. Lee Merritt, Dr. Judy Mikovits, and many, many other people. So while we couldn't possibly give you a highlight of every single one of these speakers, we just want to show you the conference so that you can tune in for yourself, so you can watch all of these incredible presentations. And also they had Q&A sessions where they all got up on stage, and many different people from the audience came up and gave their testimonies. So please be sure to check out this entire thing streaming for free on Brighteon University, or you can always skip ahead if you don't want to wait and go to the Healing for the Ages website and purchase the replays for yourself.
That's what we're teaching really, is like looking for the root cause of the condition. And it's all your internal and external environment. It's just like, it's that simple. So as I'm at these conferences and I'm talking to these doctors, I'm like, well, what is producing the spike protein? You know, all this other stuff. And I've been involved in the transhumanism research since 2016, when no one even knew what transhumanism was. That's when I came out on Alex Jones and started talking in 2018 and revealing the whole plan that there's going to be a pandemic, they're going to create bioweapons, they're going to have nanotechnology in it. And that show, that 2008, I think it was May 2018 show, when we revealed everything, and they've been telling you what they're going to do. It's not like I'm some genius that just all of a sudden figured it out. I just look in the right way. Well, actually, God puts these things in my lap. And then after that show, that 2018 show was the last show I ever did on Alex. The next day, Alex had 12 lawsuits filed against him for Sandy Hook. We had death threats to our employees in our office. I had death threats filed against me. And within 2 weeks of that show, I was completely wiped clean of the internet. We had over 120 million to 200 million followers in 2018, and then I was gone, ghosted completely. No one even knew who I was. None of my videos, anything would ever come up. So they did not want us poking the transhumanism nanotechnology bear, because this is the world of synthetic biology that we're living in. And this is a whole new world, okay? What we're looking at and what we're discovering right now in the blood of people is we're already seeing it. None of us consented to be half cyborg, half human, but it's an attack on the body and the mind and the soul. So you're going to learn today some basics of the transhumanism agenda and what to expect over the next 5 years, why the internal and external environment, why the time is now, which we keep saying, like, now is the time, and the root cause, and it is the time. I don't want you to think any of this is bad, because we are winning, and God is putting people in place for the solutions. But it's being sold to us as, oh my gosh, look, you're going to be able to put a chip in your hand and pay for everything. You're going to be able to put something in your head, and you're going to be able to learn languages. You're going to have all this other stuff. Oh, we're going to be able to selectively find cancer cells in your body, and we're going to be able to attack them. Same way chemo, and same way every single drug has been sold to us since the beginning of time. Humans with augmented capabilities will evolve into an enhanced species, transcending humanity. This is the post-human world that they want. So we just have to ask ourselves, what are we willing to accept? And, this is why I'm talking to these doctors at all these conventions. I'm like, why are you not talking about the real issue? Why are you not talking about transhumanism? Why are you not talking about all the nanotechnology they're using? They don't know, because they're not doing the research. And it just goes over. You say transhumanism, it just like goes over people's head. They can't even imagine it. It's the same thing happened to me, actually, but now it's becoming real. Like, we're watching. We started the transhumanism research team probably like a year and a half ago or something like that, and literally it's been phases that we've been documenting. Like, we have a year and a half or more worth of research, and you can see, like, phase 1 was the quantum dots. We could see them blinking in the blood. Phase 2, we started seeing the self-assembly technology start to happen. Phase 3, we started seeing more of the hydrogels, more of these blobs. We just call them blobs everywhere in the blood. And so we're like watching this happen. And this is from vaccinated, I hate that word. These are from bioweapon injected people and non-bioweapon injected people. And now, recently, we've been seeing synthetic red blood cells. So we have, this was the phase 1 of transhumanism, this is phase 2, this is phase 3. And at the same time, during this process, we've been feverishly testing every single product, different concoctions and everything to try to neutralize, disable. That's the plan, right? It's like, what's the solution for all this, which we're going to get into. They engineer all these wars, the racism, all this stuff is all planned. It's all engineered. They really started making progress when they, convinced us all about 5G and convinced us all about the cell phones and, started putting up all the cell phone towers. And as a matter of fact, I had already been working on transhumanism stuff when I was one of the doctors on the Trump COVID task force. It was 27 of us. And what was really going on behind the scenes was Operations Telecommunications upgrade. Okay, not Operation Warp Speed, which was, fortunately, we all quit 4 weeks in after there was a meeting between Bill Gates and President Trump, and everything kind of went south since then. So we all ended up quitting and doing our own research, trying to help humanity and trying to warn people not to get the bioweapon. Thank you. Stop messing with the world. Stop messing with God's nature. The artificial lighting, they banned the incandescent light bulbs. Why do you think they did that? Because the blue lights, everything is, you notice how everything is being smart now? Like smart washing machine, smart this, smart that in your house. You know why that is? Because they want everybody connected to the cloud. It's Human 2.0. And we're just going, oh wow, it's smart, that's pretty cool. That's a good name for it. Actually, you know what cell phones and cell phone towers should be called? What the real name is, according to the DoD documents? Directed energy weapons. That's what they are. Your router, your cell phones, 5G towers, they're directed energy weapons. You can pull up all those. I've got all the links on here. You can see it all for yourself. But basically, they engineer the media, they engineer everything, and I really believe that they got so scared because so many people are waking up and did wake up during the pandemic that's why they're escalating everything, and they're just basically throwing everything at it because they realize that they're losing right now. But we want to protect everybody and keep everybody healthy and keep everybody safe, right? The vectors that they're using, that we've identified, they're using artificial light, they're using fear, obviously, they're using parasites, they're using these bioweapons, they're using venoms, they're using different types of altered RNA and DNA, they're using electronic magnetic warfare, they're using the directed energy weapons, they're using nanotech, they're using plasmids, they're using lipid nanoparticles, polymers and plastics inside your body, microplastics, hydrogels. I mean, all of this stuff. How many people do you hear actually talking about all this? Not too many, right? I mean, a big shout out to Dr. Anna Mahalsha, Dr. David Nixon, La Quinta Columna, all of these rebels that are out there really, digging deep into the transhumanism agenda because not too many people out there are wanting to discuss this. So here is the secret exposure of 8 years of research trying to track down exactly what's going on, right? This was another God moment for me because I just said, God, how is all this stuff getting in people's bodies? It just doesn't make sense. Like, it's got to be being produced in people's bodies. It's got to be being produced in people's bodies. And I was in meditation one day, and I got this message about yeast. So I went in and I typed in Google. Last year, we talked about this, that they genetically modify E. coli and yeast to produce venoms. And I'm like, what if everything is being produced by the genetically modified yeast? And so I started typing in Google yeast. And here's the kicker on this, though. They are using brewer's yeast, modified brewer's yeast. This is the perfect Trojan horse. Everybody know what a Trojan horse is? It's just like unidentified. You go in and it's a surprise. And I'm like, oh my gosh. No one would ever know this. But what could go wrong when we have organisms or technology inside of us being affected by EMFs? The secret frequencies. Okay, let me see what I have here. Oh yeah, so this was Maria. Do we have a microphone? Maria, stand up for a second if you don't mind. Or you have a microphone right there. So, is that on? Testing. Here, testing. Maria and our team, we're like kids in a candy store. Sometimes it's like, Maria will call me up. She's like, oh my gosh, I think I just found the world's first biosensor. And I'm like, really? Check it out. So when did you find this?
So this was this was in July. So we knew that they existed only through documentation and research. And this was actually my first in a live person. And if you don't let the slide bake, then you're definitely not going to see what the technology forms.
I'm trying to see if we can get that video. Is there a way we can get that video?
There you go. Yeah, so it's playing, and you'll watch as I start to manipulate it with some of the most powerful magnets that money could buy. And there you go. You see the inside literally change, and that's the way I'm manipulating it on the slide. So this actually formed after, I would say, was about 12 hours. And if you do sit and watch, this was in an injected person, so 2 shots. Yeah, and a relative, actually, so yeah. So I let it sit and bake for a little while, and then you can actually start to see what the technology will form, what the robots are doing, and it seems that they all have a different purpose.
You know, and we're also noticing, different people in different parts of the world. And Canada, for some reason, seems to be like not so much stuff in people's blood up there. But it's really like everybody is different. And that kind of coincides with how they ran the bioweapon shot program, right? Yeah. Because, there were different vials on different shots and different companies that were making the shots. Thank you, Maria.
It didn't go out of your body. What did it do? It embedded it in your body. It became your body. And now it's doing what with electrons? Capturing them. Do you see the words they use, the languaging? Capture. Do you know what the effect is called among the quantum dot physicists? It's called quantum confinement. These are not accidental words. They know exactly what these things do. They capture life. Remember this, put this in your notes, healers. Electrons are life in this physical world, and they are capturing them. Now, I said electromagnetic frequencies activate these quantum dots, right? What is one of those wonderful EMF emitters that you keep on your body all the time? Cell phones. If you want to learn how to turn those EMFs off on your cell phones, you need to watch Healing for the Ages Virtual Solution Summit from May. Go get the replay. We got it all laid out in there, how to turn your phones off, minimize EMFs so that we can actually cleanse these things out. EMFs activate. So if I turn off the source for the activation, now I still might have tellurium in my body, but it's not able to participate effectively in electron capture. Do you get it? And then if I sleep on a grounding sleep system, I'm getting electrons coming into my body. So I'm giving my body the life back. How many of you have started sleeping on a grounding sleep system on your bed? Yes! Now, here's my challenge to each of you. Put your hand up. Make sure somebody else you love does it too. Can we start spreading this out? Because when you're grounding at night, it sets you up for chelation in a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful way. How many of you know whether you have quantum dots in you or not? Okay? Everybody raise your hand. Raise your hand if you've seen a chemtrail ever in your life. Raise your hand if you've ever, keep them up. Raise a hand if you've ever gone out to a restaurant and had a beverage. You got quantum dots in you, dog. All right? Now let's talk about getting them out. So, one of the quantum dots they use is a cadmium tellurium quantum dot. These are two nasty heavy metals. Very, very nasty. Nano means that they are between 1 and 100 nanometers, but often between 1 and 10. This is ridiculously small. It can be aerosolized. It goes up into the atmosphere, right? They charge it with the nice little harps and stuff like that. And what happens? A rain cloud forms. And what do you think comes raining down from the upper atmosphere where the chemtrail was? Quantum dots, barium, aluminum, and so forth. So, in this world, to think, well, that's not me, I never took a contrasting agent, that's not true. It's all of us. We've got to get better at our game. Our game is God's game. We got to get better at it. So this comes from this book. Do you see that book in the upper corner? Applications of Quantum Dots in Biology and Medicine. This was printed in 2022. This is the latest and greatest book. It will put you to sleep at night. I know, I passed out with it a couple of times trying to read. You know, I'm just like, oh my God. I don't know how any of those people stay awake in the jobs that they do. It's so boring, right? First thing out of one of the chapters, encapsulation with phospholipids is one of the fundamental methods. You got to read their language. They know exactly what they're doing. They take a quantum dot and they can put polyethylene glycol on the end of it. They can encapsulate it in a lipid nano. It doesn't matter. They know when there's a fat around it, it has a greater chance of embedding in your cell structure. What is the outer membrane of your cell called? Who knows? Raise your hand. Phospho what? Wait, and what's a lipid? A fat. Phospholipid bilayer. So if I wrap something from Lucifer in a lipid, what's going to happen to it? It's going to get right into your cell. That's how it works. And because it's so small, do you even know it's there? So what do they get all the time? They love this. Plausible deniability. It was in Marvel in a movie. You're talking about science fiction. Can I ask you a question? Where do you think Marvel got the idea for that movie? If it's in a science, if you want to know what's actually they can do, go watch some science fiction movies. That's called predictive programming, so that when you hear it for real, you will dismiss it. They know what they're doing. Here's the reality. We got to know what we're doing too. Can I get an amen? All right. So let's get through this here. This was a very important paper. Read the top. All optical detection of biocompatible quantum dots. What do we see here? What are they talking about? Trace metal ion detection. They can tell when it's in your body or not. There are people in this room that could go in an MRI with no contrast and just fluoresce immediately anyway, because the radiation from the MRI activates what's already in your body. So any notion that you need more of that is preposterous. They say it messes up zeta potentials. How many of you all seen the red blood cells where they're all clumped together? Have you seen that in those? You seen all that? That's a loss of zeta potential. Zeta potential on a red blood cell means the outer edge of the red blood cell is all negative. And a negative and a negative do what in your blood? They push apart. Well, one of the persons on our research team that couldn't make it, Wendy, did some tests on herself with her own blood using a grounding sleep system. Now, the traditional recommendation we give everybody is 30 minutes of grounding a day is all you need. Not in 2024. It took her a minimum of 3 hours to reestablish zeta potentials of grounding. 3 consecutive hours. This is why we came up with the grounding sleep system. Because we said, when's the best time to be grounded? While are you sleeping? And now you're getting 8 hours of reestablishing your zeta potentials, neutralizing all of those effects. Do you understand the why a little bit better now? Now, what do they say here? They say that on quantum dots, the surfaces are often cationic. What does that mean? It means they're positively charged. So if you take a cell that's supposed to have a negative charge around it and you make it positive, what is it going to do to the other red blood cells that have a negative charge? Attract them. And now what do you have in that in that live blood cell analysis? Clumping of the blood. Does it make sense now? So if you see clumping of the blood, what's the first recommendation they got to get? Ground. You got to ground. Simple as that. We start there. There's the zeta potential for a picture for everybody. Look at this difference, everybody. Look at this difference. You get it? When you are not grounded, you are being immersed in chaos. Immersed in chaos. When you are grounded, you say enough to that. It's really that simple. The root of exposure, look in the upper right-hand corner, cell damage. So we're talking about quantum dots here, everybody. Cell damage due to long-time excitation via external light source or due to a rise in temperature. They can activate these not only with EMFs, but with light. How many of you heard me tell you turn off the blue light? That's why. I want to take every single possible way they can activate what's in your body away from them. So on your phones, we teach you how to do this in the Virtual Solution Summit. Turn off the blue light on your computers, turn off the blue light on your phones, keep the phones off your body. The only time my phone is on my body is when it is completely turned off. Other than that, it stays on a grounding mat. And when I use it, I type on it on that grounding mat. And now guess what happens? The few rare occasions that I have to hold that phone while it's on, it's an emergency or something, I can feel it instantly. And it's crazy. All right? It's crazy. What do they say down here? Quantum dots may cause a high chance of pulmonary uptake and deposition followed by transportation into systemic sites. What did they just say on Wikipedia? This doesn't really happen. What are these guys saying? This happens all the time. We have a difference of opinion. Now, when you look at this, here's the cell, here's the nucleus, right? These are quantum dots, all these little things here. Can they embed in the nucleus? Yes, you see that little dot up there? Can they embed in your mitochondria? Find the mitochondria. Yes. They are small enough to embed in every part of your body. That's why they made them so small, for this intention. The Internet of Things, everybody, have you heard this? How do you think they're going to execute it? With a magic wand? No. By getting you to pay for your own demise. And why? Because they told you what they're doing and you chose not to read it, or you chose not to believe it. And then all of a sudden you wake up one day and they tell you you have something very negative. Cancer. Synonymous with quantum dots. Nanoparticle, quantum dot, same thing. Nanoparticles' interaction with the cells may enhance the expression of the genes responsible for the formation of lysosomes and inhibit protein synthesis. What did we learn yesterday? You inhibit, jack up protein synthesis, the body's going to start making pseudouridine. It starts making pseudouridine, now you get all type of messed up proteins being made. That's one of the things that leads to cancer. And what activates them? Look at that word up there, so you got to circle it. You see that purple mark? That's me with a book writing in my book, the thing you're not ever supposed to do, right? Look at that. Electromagnetic fields activate these. Why? Because they're metals. And what do quantum dots do? Keep it simple. What do they do to electrons? They capture them. And what does grounding do? Replenishes them. Keep it simple. So let me say this to everybody watching, everybody watching, everybody watching. What I'm sharing with you is for educational purposes only. And if you're going to learn how to chelate, you better come study with somebody that knows how to do it. I don't want anybody out there playing around with what I'm teaching you right now without having any experience or expertise in it. Can I get an amen? Okay? We are designing a class at the Energetic Health Institute, Detox 104, specifically to teach you how to do this. It'll be online next year. Starting next Friday, the 20th, we have Detox 101, 102, and 103 starting up. Go to energetichealthinstitute.org, check out our cleansing and fasting certification, and you get to work directly with me. All right? We have we had 70 seats in there. We only have a few now. But I'll tell you right now, if you want to learn how to cleanse, come and study with me. I've been doing it for 25 years. I will show you how to do it, your digestion, your liver, and your kidneys. And next year, I'll show you how to get these quantum dots out too. Can I get an amen? Okay? Wherever there's current, electrons moving, there's a magnetic field that gets created. If you're ungrounded, you are going to be in chaos. If you are grounded, you are going to say bye-bye to that instantly. That's why people, when we go to the forest and take off of our shoes, when we go to the beach and take off our shoes and walk around, how many of you feel instantly better? It's not something in your head. It's something in your entire body happening. You are reconnected. Quantum dots, they get hit with an EMF, and they activate and start doing this. And what do they do to electrons? Capture the electron. The electron that you need. How does a mitochondria produce energy? What's that thing called that helps that final stage of energy production? It is ATP, but what's the process? What's the part of the mitochondria? What? The electron transport chain. So if a mitochondria has quantum dots in it, what's happening to the electron transport chain? It's getting completely wiped out. And now you can't produce energy, and now guess what's going to build up in your body? More of the bioweapon you've been exposed to. You get it? Electrical transport in single and coupled quantum dots has been studied under microwave irradiation. Transport in the dots was dominated by a single electron charging effect and a zero-dimensional confinement effect. Microwaves seem to modulate the source drain voltage superimposed on the DC bias voltage. What does that mean? What kind of current do we run in? Alternating current, our bodies. Alternating current, let me say it better. What kind of current did God intend for us to run in? Alternating current or direct current? That's telling you when they embed you with quantum dots, bye-bye your direct current, hello all of the alternating current you're getting hit with. They know what they're doing. We have to know what we're doing too. And then here's the confinement. Here's the quantum dot. Here's it trapping an electron because of this quantum confinement effect. What created the quantum confinement effect? There's a quantum dot. What activated that? So it created a quantum confinement effect. What did? Your cell phone, EMFs. What deactivates the quantum confinement effect? Because it's called filling in a hole in the ground state. I remember reading that in that book, and the light bulbs just, boom, there's, through all the horse nut, there's the gym. Oh, what would happen? This was the honest thought I had earlier this year. What would happen if we just filled in that hole? How do I fill in that hole? Take my shoes off, take my socks off, go stand on some grass, and it works. God figured all this out. He's like, I know you guys are going to do some stupid beep, right? So here, let me help you out. And you've already seen that one. So how does healing happen? We have to make sure that this water all around the cell is filled with great things, from clean oxygen and clean water and chlorophyll and organic nutrients and mitochondrial nutrients and amino acids and great vitamins and omega-3s and plasmalogens and all these wonderful things we're learning. We have to make sure it's filled with that, so this is in abundance. And every time this cell needs something, it's right there. Do you get it? That's why you're taking in what you're taking in, so it just goes right there. And how do we know we're in the optimal pH for this to happen? Because guess what? There are more ways to deactivate quantum dots. They publish in their literature quantum dots don't work very well at pHs of 7.4 and 7.5. So that's why they want to make you acidic. Well, your urine pH is going to correlate very closely to your interstitial, which is the fluid around your cells, pH. So what we're giving on guidance now, if you're going and getting those pH strips, is 7.5 is your goal in your first morning urine. And if you're not there, what do you need to do? Alkalize a little bit more. Because if you're grounding and you're alkalizing, now you're really tipping the scales in your favor. We want to buy time, deactivate their technology so we can chelate it out. Because chelation, what do you think? Is chelation going to be alkalizing or acidifying to your body? What do you think, sir? In the white, right there. What do you think? No, it's going to be very acidifying to your body. So that's why you need to take extra care with alkalizing while you're doing it. And you got to watch that pH while you're chelating, because you might have to take a lot of potassium bicarbonate. You might have to bring some more in and make sure you're at 7.5 or even just a touch higher to optimize the clearance of the biotech out of your body. There's a little study, there's getting some controversy over this, because of course there is. Very interesting study on self-assembly of these quantum dots and how the electromagnetic fields help them orient themselves and start forming shapes and functions, right? Visible artificial self-assembling entities ranging from about 1 to 10 micrometers or greater of many different shapes. They were animated worm-like structures. Maria, what are you seeing? Worm-like structures in the blood. What is that? It's nanotech. We have to stop disbelieving what we're seeing right there. You know that's not supposed to be in the blood. End of story. Now let's figure out how to get it out. You see what I'm saying? I don't care about I care about getting it out. It's not supposed to be there. They resembled carbon nanofilaments because it's not just quantum dots, heavy metals. It can also be graphene oxide. These are real things. It's all over the literature. You just go do a search. It's all over the literature. But here's the thought, and this is where we want to bring it home. Here's the thought, everybody. Nanotech need nano building blocks. This is the weakness. If we can understand how to get the building block out, now your room for error with all these damn EMFs, I said that too, goes way up. Your room for error increases. But if you've been drinking down contrast, if you've been getting the shots and you keep getting the shots, I can tell you, I can't help you. There's a certain point where it's like, I just got a Bob Newhart. What did Bob Newhart say yesterday? Yeah, we just got to stop it. Just stop it. So we've run about 74 of these tests so far, okay? This isn't just like 1 or 2 tests. This is 74, if you really want to break it down, 74 individual studies of it. All right? Here's what we got. This is my stuff right here. This is from February. Look at the arsenic and barium levels at the top. You see them? This is without any provoking agent. That's what's coming out of me at any time. Guess what was going on for me in February? Exhausted. Copper was through the floor. I was out of copper. I had all this stuff in the middle of it, right? In place of it. And guess what was starting to eat me alive? Yeast. You see how it works? The yeast, the E. coli, work with the quantum dot, with the heavy metal to build a biofilm to protect themselves. And now they get to produce whatever they are producing. If it's a genetically modified thing that they're producing, what's going to be produced in your body? That genetically modified thing. Cadmium, cesium, you heard about cesium area. Look at that, 6.4. I don't care that it's within range. It's not within my range. My range for these things is 0. I don't want none of it in me. Look at the lead and the mercury, 1.9 and 0.59. You see that? Look at the lead levels that are coming out of me when I'm just peeing. That's ridiculous. Now, let's get through it. So the first thing we had to do was confirm that the EDTA worked. We did. Look at that pre-arsenic. This is just with the microsomal EDTA. Look at the arsenic up there. It went from 9.3 to 6.9. It went down. So that tells us microsomal EDTA isn't effective at arsenic. But what is it effective at? Barium, lead, and mercury. You see that? One chelator won't get everything. That's why we got to use tandems. Okay? Now, we go a little bit further. There's some stuff on EDTA you can read in lead poisoning. We'll go past that. And I'm doing 50 milligrams per kilogram. I'm at full body weight dose on these. So we added in DMSA. And that last one was on some DMSA. So now, this is the 4th cycle of chelation I did in June. Look at the arsenic that's coming out with this, all right? So this first one right here is a pre-provocation. Look at those arsenic levels, still high. Do you see that? 110. That's way higher than it was. What's going on? I'm going to tell you something to finish this off today. Look at the cadmium and the cesium, still present. Look at the lead and the mercury. Not as bad, right? Look at that lead. What was the original lead? Pretty high, 1.9. But what is it now after I've done just 4 rounds? 0.25, way better. Guess what disappeared spontaneously too? The candida, the fungal infection. It just magically went away. I didn't even have to treat it specifically. Mercury, still a little bit in there. I have 0 silver fillings, folks. That's one of the major sources for mercury. So then we go the pre-provocation. Here's looking at the essential elements. I love this test because you also get to look at the good guys in here. Calcium, magnesium. Look at that copper level. You see how low the copper is? Right here. You see how low it is? My good semiconductors are low. My bad, they're not mine, their bad semiconductors are high. We got to switch that up. And look at manganese. Pay attention to manganese right now, folks. I'm going to go over about 2 minutes. Look at that manganese. Do you see any manganese? Nope. 0, right? So we then took some EDTA. Look at this. Lead goes up a little bit. Mercury goes up or goes down just a little bit. It's insignificant. Cesium went up a little bit. Barium went up a little bit. Arsenic went down a little bit. We're seeing that. Maybe the EDTA inhibits arsenic a little bit. And then we look down here with that microsomal EDTA. Do you see that? This is a key one for all practitioners. Do you see the manganese right there? Right? This is how you know the microsomal EDTA is drawing out of the cell, because manganese is embedded in the cell too. And we've seen this on literally every single test of the microsomal EDTA, that you can trust that when you see manganese showing up, you are drawing not only the manganese, but any of these heavy metals out of the cell as well. That's how it works. Super exciting if you're a nerd like me. Then we get into, boop, 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 DMSA on the first day. Now look at that arsenic jump again, 180. Look at that lead now. What was it circulating in my bloodstream at any time? 0.25. Now what is it? Being drawn out of me. This is after 4 rounds, folks. 5.3. Get the lead out. 5.3. That's what's just hiding in the cells at any given time. I got it. What does that tell me about everybody in this room? You got it too. Sucks, but that's the truth. We go and we look after the 4th day of DMSA. What do we see here? Lead, 4.1. It's going down now, but I'm taking the same amount. What does that tell me? I'm lowering my levels. There isn't that much to keep pulling out. That gets really exciting. Arsenic, 34, right? Mercury, 1.5. Everything's going down. Guess what happened to me symptom-wise? Clarity of thought started coming back in. Feeling better started coming back in. Happier started coming back in. Little skin stuff started going away. You get it? We got to get those building blocks out.
I would like to bring Maria Chrysler. Where is she? I hope she's here. And we're going to talk about bee pollen, honey, and propolis in the blood, and as she calls it, the coolest slides on the planet. Here she is. Thank you, thank you. All right. Hi. Thank you. I got this good picture of you. So she's a microbiologist, but that's just the beginning. award-winning formulator, patent holder for diabetic treatment using natural formulation, clinical laboratory research scientist with over 30 years experience in the allopathic medical field. She knows the behind the scenes, y'all. Advanced microscopist, including electron microscopy, and the leading expert in nanotechnology identification. There are very few people that know what she knows and can do what she can do, and we're so thankful to you. Like I was like, I'm enamored by her. She's so cool. So welcome. Thank you. She's going to help me explain these things. I could talk about bee pollen and honey and where it comes from, but she knows what she saw on the slide. So this was the slide that I originally showed you. It's a teaser. And I'm like, what's happening here? What's the bee pollen doing? And so she, of course, blew it up and explained it to me. Go for it.
It is beautiful.
Yes, it is.
The coolest slides on the planet. So what I did was, this was just an in vitro study, which means it's outside of the body, which is what we'll do most of the time. And this is bee pollen, what we have gathered in its more mature state. Jana and I had a meeting where we had to sit down and just kind of, because there's different stages of development of the pollen, and there's no real reference material for them. So whenever you put a pathogen or something like that around it, then the bee pollen actually starts to behave differently, and then it goes through its different stages of maturation. So we're still working on that.
It's fascinating.
I'm not confident. But this is bee pollen. And when I say macrophage tunneling and I say analog, so this is something that's very similar that happens with our macrophages. Macrophages are part of your immune cells. So macrophages have this really cool ability to talk to one another, and they'll make these nanotubules in between one another, and they'll actually share infection with one another. This is how they communicate. Sometimes if there's a protein we'll say deficiency or malfunction, the macrophages will communicate, and sometimes you'll have a proliferation of cancers and things like that. So it's important to take care of yourselves, yes, but what was so cool about this particular slide is I caught it in action. So this is like a live smear, like a live cell analysis. And what we do know about little micro-robots and infections and things like that is they're made of materials that are inorganic and not favorable to our bodies or bioidentical, right? So the bee pollen actually had a very interesting response where I caught it literally sucking in a macrophage. So they are sharing infection just like our macrophages would do with one another. So there's an innate intelligence about the bee pollen and the way it works with our bodies.
Yeah, I thought I was enamored with bee pollen before. Wow. So if you're already taking bee pollen, look what it's been doing in your body all along. It's been working with our macrophages to reduce things that shouldn't be there, infections and debris. Here's another slide that she took, and you can see at the bottom, it's inorganic tech contaminant. And then you see the bee pollen above it. And I love the words that she used, hive intelligence, because that's the way it's acting in the body. Can you explain this one as well?
Yeah, so whenever I'm looking at a slide, I don't always catch everything that's happening right then and there, so I'll go back and I'll study the slides afterwards because there's always details. It's just like you're watching the same movie that you've seen 20 times, but then you catch a line, something that you didn't know was there. And so what I started to notice, this is the inorganic tech contaminant. This was actually snake venom. So whenever I am testing things, a lot of times I'll have the raw material in its raw form. Thank you, Dr. Artis, for getting that sent to me, and Dr. Group.
Yes.
So I'm able to identify what these things look like in their native state, in their raw material, and then I can identify everything around it. So this here's something that we see a lot of, and I won't be able to tell you what it's made of until the 23rd. But you can see the hive intelligence here, and what they do is they conglomerate around each other as if to support each other. There's another really good slide where we're going to show hive intelligence.
Was this it? No,
it's not that one, but that's
maybe,
okay.
Maybe it's coming. I thought this was interesting. Snake venom appears like this fluorescent blue Very interesting. And you can see that the pollen is, oh, actually, this is glucose oxidase. This is the bee pollen and the honey together. This is a product that Dr. Group and I put together, a concentrated glucose oxidase. And you can see that it's absorbing, you can see the blue within it, it's absorbing the venom.
Right up through here. So this is venom in its native state, and you can see that the bee pollen is gathering and pulling it in, eliminating it from the body. So
pretty cool.
Very cool.
Was this the one that you were talking about?
This is the one. So this is where I saw probably the most hive intelligence, which was really cool. I saw a video once where a hornet had attacked a bee, and the bees from the
it's on.
Right, yeah, the bees from the hive completely surrounded the hornet and obliterated it. And so I thought, wow, that's really cool because I can see this at the microscopic level. So this is what hive intelligence means to me. And you can see how they start to communicate and literally start to fade out and share the infection. And again, that's snake venom. It's very distinct, and I can pick that out pretty easy. Amazing. And now all of you can too.
Yes. This one was amazing to me. So this is propolis in the blood, and we explained to them with the superconductive fibers what it's doing.
Yeah, so frequently, I'm sure many of you have seen and some videos and talks where we have these superconductive fibers in the blood. They've been, some people have hypothesized that they are protein linkage. That is not what these are. These are superconductive fibers. So whenever I have blood and it's very condensed and rouleaued and just gathered up like this in clumps, there's always a presence of a polymer or these superconductive fibers, always. And this is the red blood cells losing their sialic acid and having an energy harvest happening to them. Whenever I applied the propolis to the slide, which I talked to Jana and I said, I don't know a lot about propolis, so explain to me the difference, because it seems to me, this is my exact words I said, it seemed to me that this was a much stronger, much faster reaction because it happened immediately, and to pull those fibers out the way it did, it has to be a very highly negatively charged compound in order to pull those fibers like it did. There are very few things that do that. Propolis is one, glutathione is another.
Amazing.
So yeah, and those are the superconductive fibers, and it just pulled them right out.
Yep, and propolis is a highly concentrated form of what the bees make with all the resources they have. So with the new microscope, what will you be able to see different than you see here?
So this is going to be a really fun time for me because now we have access to this scanning electron microscope, which I just started using last week.
Wonderful.
But what's really neat about this technology is I don't have to have a transmission electron microscope. I don't have to have a big, gigantic TEM for this. The SEMs are amazing technology now, and what we have with this one is called an EDS system. The EDS system allows me to chemically identify what I'm looking at. So I will have the transcript, I will have the actual genetic makeup of these compounds and be able to chemically identify them and compare them against the raw materials, which thanks to Dr. Group and Global Healing, I have access to these raw materials. So we're, at least putting the pieces of the puzzle together, and we'll better understand why and how these things that we're introducing, to help people are actually working against the tech.
Yes. Thank you. Amazing.
What we are engaged in is a war. This is a war against humanity. And, when they used to call it the fog of war, it was about battlefield confusion, like George Washington had the fog drop on him outside of New York, escaped the British. But now it's here. It's in our brain. It's information space confusion. That's where we're fogged. So don't feel like the Lone Ranger. Everybody's confused to some degree because it's an intelligence program being run on us. This is an intelligence war. I love Yuval Noah Harari's comment here. I don't quote him very often, but he says, censorship no longer works by hiding information from you. Censorship works by flooding you with immense amounts of information, of irrelevant information, of funny cat videos until you're just unable to focus. And that's where we came into this whole understanding. We didn't understand very much because we've been so distracted by a lot of nonsense. Max Kaiser talks about economics, and he claims that, and this is true of medicine too, is that we don't understand it because they've purposely added complexification and crapification. I really like that. They made it so complex that we just gave up. Even doctors, here's what we did, which we should not have done, but we just kind of threw up our hands when all these papers weren't making any sense to people that weren't really involved in the research. We would read the abstract, tell you what they're going to, maybe the introduction, and then we'd get down to what's the summary. But we missed this how they did the studies. You can't do that. You have to read the studies. When I read the study about when they found the SARS-CoV-2 genome over in China, I went back and looked at all the authors, or 30 authors on that paper. I couldn't find that they existed, except the last person. And the last person was Dr. Shi, the bat lady of Wuhan lab. So the reason is we injected everybody in our military and our border patrol and all the security services that keep America safe theoretically with a vaccine whose by this story at least was the genetic sequence was given to us by the communist Chinese bioweaponeers. I mean, this is just nonsense. Okay, there's a small number of people running this show, right? We're going to get out. But the small number of people running this are very well trained in psychological warfare. And it goes way back beyond the Tavistock Institute. These are thousands of years old they've been running this. And they use psychology and narrative. So I usually ask people, that picture there, I said, what is that thing? And people say, oh, that's the SARS-CoV-2 virus, or that's that creepy spike protein. No, that is CGI. It's a computer-generated image. It's not an electron micrograph. It's nothing. That thing cannot hurt you, okay? It's made up. Now, contrast that with this. These are my dryer balls, okay? I can prove they exist. I can prove they exist. The problem is, we have to stop believing in things that nobody can prove they exist. Okay, but Scott Kesterson from Bards FM told me one time, yeah, you said you could put my eye out with one of those, so those are dangerous. Here is actually an electron microscope. See, the reason they have to use that blue, spiky, scary-looking thing is when you see a real virus under an electron micrograph, what they call a virus, it doesn't look all that scary. In fact, one of these is viruses, and one of these are exosomes. This is what they're calling it. This is what the researchers that do this. This is an electron micrograph of viruses on one side and exosomes on the other, and I can't tell which is which. But by definition, a virus is supposed to be this little bit of genetic material that's wrapped in a lipid coating that floats through the air, gets into my nose, gets into my cellular machinery, and makes me sick. Bad. But then the exosome, it has a little bit of genetic material wrapped in a lipid coating. It comes out of the cell and goes out harmlessly into the air. Here's the problem. This is a still life black and white photo. I mean, how do you deduce that from an electron micrograph? And that's what we've done. We've accepted things because we've not demanded proof. And also because it's too hard to check. Who cares about making money on an obscure paper written in 1920s? But here's another tell. All the papers leading up to John Enders and his papers are all behind a paywall. In other words, if you're a Harvard professor, you can probably read them because you've got institutional pass. Me? No. I had to search by secondhand knowledge. I had to get pieces of the paper and put it together, and fortunately, he gave a Nobel lecture about this. But that's the problem. They're hiding from us what we would have determined to be true. And this is how they did that. Okay, so if I'm going to give you a false scientific reality, I've got to control the scientists. And I can put these false ones out, but there are real scientists out there doing research. How do we control them? Well, they communicate through written papers, mostly. So it turns out, these two guys, Charles Galton Darwin, who is the grandson of the famous Darwin, and Alexander Fleming, who discovered penicillin, they went to the British government after World War II and they said, we need better medical and scientific publishing because we didn't really know what the Japanese and the Germans were doing very well. The British government said, no problem. Because they could say that right away. They said, we'll get with Springer, we'll make a great big publishing house. The reason they could do that without contacting anybody is the British government owned the largest publishing house for medicine in the world at that time. It was Butterworth's. And it wasn't just the British government, it was MI6, the British spy agency. Think about that. It owned the biggest publishing house for medical and scientific information in the world. And then they got with Germany, and they merged Springer with Butterworth, and they made this, what is probably Springer Verlag. Now, it's like almost everything's published by this one big medical scientific publishing house. And their first editor-in-chief, you're going to love this, he wasn't an author, he wasn't a scientist, he was an intelligence agent. It was Robert Maxwell. We know he was a spy for the British against the Germans in World War II. We know he was a Mossad agent because he was buried on the Mount of Olives. He's rumored to be a KGB double agent, and he was involved with the CIA. So this guy is royalty in the intelligence service. But how do we know he's involved with the CIA? Because his daughter is Ghislaine Maxwell, the pedophile consort of pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Again, the small club, the big club that we're not in. And they named it, and this is one of my points to you, that it's not just, we're not dealing with incompetence, we're dealing with abject evil. They named this press Pergamon Press. Now, if you're a biblical scholar, I had to look this one up. I had to talk to a biblical scholar. But Pergamon in Revelation is called the seat of Satan. It is where they had a sacrificial altar. It was down in the area of where it's Phrygia. I have a whole lecture on that. But it's in ancient Anatolia, south of the Black Sea in Turkey. And this altar was there for very, very thousands of years. Well, what happened is, in about the 1800s, and again, I'm telling you this because why would you name a medical journal for a satanic sacrifice altar? I mean, you gotta ask. Anyway, these German archaeologists, they went down into this area of Turkey, and they unearthed the old friezes of the Pergamon altar, and they brought them back to Germany, and they built this full-size replica. It's not really a replica. They recreated the Pergamon altar of sacrifice in Berlin, in a museum. There it is. That's it. That actually was used as a basis for Albert Speer to design the building at Nuremberg rally site. I'm just kind of digressing a little bit, but I'm just showing you that they show you the symbols. They show you, if we follow what they're, if we figure out who they are, this is going to help figure out who they really are that are doing all this. And I'm not telling you this for political reasons. I'm telling you this for history, but it's kind of interesting. I remember in 2008 watching Barack Obama get the nomination for being the Democrat candidate for president. And I was sitting next to my girlfriend, and we're saying, that's a weird background. Well, it's the Pergamon altar. He had just been in Berlin. So that is designed, if you look at it carefully, it's got the same two things, and it's got all the columns. He had just been over in Berlin before this night. So if it's not these airborne viruses, what is it that makes us sick? And you've already been hearing about toxins. Toxins and poisons, same thing. I mean, it's basically poisons, parasites, and psychology. I just like it because it's the 3 Ps. But at the end of the day, it all boils down to physics. Turns out biology wasn't the end game. We should have been studying more physics in medicine. But everything's electromagnetic, and including the production of disease. So I just interviewed Dr. Gerald Pollack. Is just a brilliant PhD scientist, and he's at the University of Washington still. And this is what he and his students discovered, that all of our cells in the body, they're all little batteries. Okay, and they have a charge separation. They have negative and positive, like that's what batteries do. And that when you have a toxin, that thing you breathed in on the plane, when toxic stuff gets into the body, how do you get rid of it? You put a little negative charge around it, electrons, and then just like a south pole will push a south pole magnet out, you can push out this through charge separation. You could push out these toxins, and then they go into the lymph, into the blood, into your liver, and out through your feces. It turns out that we didn't have a yearly flu season until they laid down the telegram lines in about 1850. And what happened is, and we know, and they've proven really it's true, because when they laid down the telegram lines, all the people that worked on the railroads, because they laid them over the railroads, they started getting sick with this kind of nervous disorder. It didn't kill anybody, but made you feel like you wanted to die. It's kind of like a flu-like illness. You get a little cough, similar to a mild flu sometimes. But they found if they took a long twist in that copper wire, it went away. So that's pretty good evidence. Now, another point of evidence about influenza is that influenza, by the way, just means influence. It doesn't mean a germ. Before the telegram lines were laid down, you'd have outbreaks of flu, but it only happened every 10, 20, or 30 years. It wasn't every year. And we have a lot of records from like the British Navy and other historians that show you that when it broke out around the world, it was almost simultaneous. Now, in the age of wooden ships and iron men, 1600s, you couldn't sail around. You couldn't possibly be passing germs to each other, right? It had to be something else. Well, it turns out these guys, an Oxford, England astronomer and a guy from Winnipeg figured out all those outbreaks corresponded to sunspot cycles. And so when the sun is really hot and having flare-ups, we get sick because it charges the atmosphere, and it's like it changes your ability to keep your batteries charged because you have to have charge separation. If you suddenly step into an electromagnetic field, that goes bye-bye. And that's why Thomas Edison and Alexander Graham Bell, they both developed diabetes at an age that nobody got diabetes, because they were going from houses with no electricity into their labs for 12 hours a day with all this electrical milieu. And this is Boston. Boston, you can see why Boston might have been the third busiest city hit with the influenza of 1918. And by the way, that was not the Spanish flu. It didn't start in Spain. It started in Fort Riley, Kansas. And guess what it was? Guess who got affected? It was the young men that were coming down to be trained to be telegram operators for World War I. So it all fits together once you start seeing this right. Now, I'm just going to say something about the psychology of disease, because this is, I think, what happened partially in COVID, and they can run this play more than once, so just be advised. This is James Giordano. He's a PhD from Georgetown University, and you might have seen him talking to, he's got videos out there talking to the Naval Academy and things like that. But he said, and this was in 2016 or 17, he gave this talk. He said, we can disable a population simply by fear of a disease. We don't even need to have a disease. And this is how he said we do it. He says, we can go over to this city over here and we'll spread around a toxin. In fact, he even mentions maybe we'll use nanoparticulate toxins because we can control when they hit and how they act. And then he says, we'll let that go for a while. Then we'll go to another city. So think Wuhan, now they go to Lombardy. We'll do it in another city. We'll spread some more toxins. Now we'll start putting some things out on the news that people are getting sick. And then we'll go to a third city, New York City, and we'll put these toxins around there. And then, he says, the real disease is not the virus. The virus is what I put on the internet. At that point, you've got this disease breaking out in 3 cities. It looks like it's spreading, and you go on the internet and you say, and this disease it's very serious, and the symptoms are nervousness, sleepiness, not able to eat, it's in other words, symptoms that would apply to almost anybody. You can come up with that. So what he said, we will mobilize the worried well, and they will flood emergency rooms, and then we'll have it'll be a disconnect between the government and the private sector. We'll get into big fights about this. This is how they're going to do it. Does that sound familiar? Sure does.